What's up guys, it's Mike Thurston here. Today's video is going to be all about core training and 5 of my favourite exercises when it comes to training the abdominals. Now before we get started, you have to be able to at least have some ability to contract your abdominals without any resistance and master your breathing. So for the majority of these exercises, when you're contracting and shortening the abdominal muscles, you need to be able to exhale and squeeze. Okay, so you need to practice this before you can overload them with additional resistance. Now before you watch the rest of this video, I highly recommend you watch this other video I recorded a few months ago, which takes you through the very basics of core training and the common mistakes which people make. Now the first exercise we're going to go into is usually the most challenging, and I tend to get this one out of the way first. I would highly suggest that you buy some ab straps when it comes to performing these. It doesn't cost much, and believe me, it's a worthwhile investment. Because if you try and perform a lot of these knee raises or hanging leg raises, whatever you want to call them, using just your grip strength, yes, you can argue it's more functional, but for the majority of people, their grip strength and upper body strength is going to tire before their actual abdominals fully fatigue. So you don't get the most out of your training or the exercise. Now with the first variation I'm doing, I'm putting a bench out in front of me, and this basically allows me to temporarily pause, rest, get my breathing together and recover, and so I can maximize the efficiency of each repetition I do. Now my goal here is not to fully relax and have my legs straight at the bottom of the movement, because if I do that, I will initiate the movement with my hip flexors and create momentum, taking away the tension from my lower abs. So you can see in this variation here, I've taken the bench away altogether, which makes it a little bit more difficult, and I've actually increased the range of motion, so I'm bringing my knees all the way up to the top of my head, and I'm basically almost lying backwards at the top of the movement. You can do it with the variations, like I said, without wrist straps, but you're going to find that your forearms are going to fatigue a lot quicker, and it does place a little bit of stress on the shoulders, so try it if you can. It looks impressive, but most of the time, when you see a lot of people doing these abdominal exercises on Instagram and stuff, more often than not, they're just flashy and just for show. You know, I'm not gonna lie about that one. You can change it up, some of these variations. This one's called Around the World. They're pretty good nonetheless, but it just means they're even more difficult. Yes, you could argue they're more functional, but not essential to get, you know, the abdominal muscles popping. Now for the rest of these exercises, I won't perform these in any particular order, I'll mix it up from time to time. We'll go into the rope crunch. So what I would say when you do this one, you have to make sure you keep your hips fixed in position, and you have the intention of trying to bring your elbows down towards your knees. So you're doing a crunching motion, but like I said before, everything is fixed. And as you crunch down, you're exhaling, but you're fully exhaling, so you're really trying to blow all the air out of your lungs. So you're literally going during each repetition. I would advise when doing this, you start off with a lighter weight and master the movement with higher repetitions, and then you can look to increase the weight even more and then reduce the reps a little bit, but just make sure you have it under control and you're feeling it where you're supposed to be feeling it. Because if you can't feel that squeeze on your core, or you just think, nah, I don't really feel it that much, then you're not doing it properly. So practice, 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 and you will get better at it. The next exercise we'll go on to is a form of a reverse crunch. So again, like the hanging knee raise, we're trying to lift the tailbone up and tuck it underneath our torso, so we're really trying to engage the lower abs when we do this. Now when I do this, I'll do it on a decline bench. How much the decline is going to be depends on your ability and strength of your core. With this exercise here, there's no handle, so I have to kind of grip the bench in a little bit of an awkward way. Whereas with this variation here, you can see that there's actually a handle which is a lot easier to grip. So if you've got that grip, ideal. If not, don't worry too much. In this variation, I'm doing a little twisty twist from side to side. It's just recruiting the abdominal fibers from different angles, which is effective, but this variation is probably a little bit more advanced than just the standard knee raise, which I was doing on this version here. Now one thing you really have to bear in mind with this exercise is that is the lowest point in the movement. I'm not going to go down anymore. If my knees were to go all the way down and my legs were straight, I'd be initiating the movement with my hip flexors, which is taking the tension away from the core, so you need to bear that in mind. Now the next exercise we'll move on to is the decline crunch. The most important thing you have to bear in mind with this one is to not to over-engage your legs, your quads, or your hip flexors. Most people set the decline way too steep and they don't actually use their abs as efficiently as they could do, and there's a lot of swinging and momentum created, and there's often, a lot of the time, they rest at the top of the movement. So when I do this, like I said, the decline isn't too steep. I'm crossing my hands to make it a little bit more difficult for myself. Where you place your hands is obviously going to make a difference. If you put your hands out in front of you, you'll make it a little bit easier for yourself. But I like all abdominal exercises, it's slow, it's controlled. As I'm coming up to the top of the movement and contracting the core, I'm exhaling. As I come back down, I'm breathing in. So, you know, with a lot of these exercises, I'd let your breathing dictate the tempo. If you lose control of your breathing, just rest at the bottom and get it back. Because if you're not getting your breathing right, you're not getting the contractions right, and the exercise is not as good as it could be. The next exercise I go on to is similar to the reverse crunch, but the range of motion is much more restricted. Grab a ball, usually 3 to 5 kilograms, put it in between your knees and cross your legs, and make sure it's fixed in position. Now what I'm doing is I'm gently pulling the ball towards my head, and as I do so, I'm blowing out hard and really squeezing my core. This one takes quite a lot of practice. I have to admit, when I've had my clients doing this, it's very rare that they get it in one go. So when doing it, just make sure you take your time with it and really think about crushing your core and pushing down as you pull that ball up towards you. The next exercise we'll move on to is a knee tuck, which I will often do with the exercise ball. You can do it with these funky little ab rollers where you strap your feet in, but most gyms won't have them, so hopefully you'll have an exercise ball and some form of platform where you can elevate your upper body. Obviously you're going to need quite a bit of control with this one so your feet aren't rolling about side to side. You get yourself into press-up position to start off with, and very slowly you're rolling that ball up towards your torso. You're bringing your knees almost to your chin, and at that point where you bring your knees high, you're going to crunch your core and you're going to exhale. If you want to make it a little bit harder for yourself, I'd recommend holding that contraction at the top of the movement before going back down into the position. So the final exercise is a form of rotation. It's a cable woodchop, as I like to call it. It's good to add this one in because a lot of the exercises we've done so far have been some form of a crunch where your body's only been moving in this plane of motion, so to get the rotation in is highly beneficial. When performing this exercise, you want to place the cable attachment at around waist height. You can vary it from time to time. The most important things you want to bear in mind is to keep your feet fixed in position. Now when you do this exercise, you want to put your hands out in front of you and keep them in this position. So your upper body almost, it just doesn't change. You're just rotating from side to side. You don't want to be bending at the elbows and the shoulders to try and go through this movement because you just move all attention away from the core to your upper body. So when you do this, you're going through a 180-degree motion from one side all the way to the other. As you rotate and bring the cable to the other side, you want to exhale and temporarily pause at the end of the movement and contract the core. So like I said, with most of these exercises, you just need to practice and don't start off with a ridiculously heavy weight because you're just going to be rotating all over the place and not working the target muscles. So there you have it, 5 of my favourite abdominal exercises. Obviously, they're not the only 5 I'm going to do. There's loads of others which I incorporate as well. But they're the ones I'll do on a regular basis. How often I train my core will vary from time to time. It's usually once a week, spending 30 to 40 minutes literally just training core, and then that's more than enough for me. You don't really need to be training more than that, because if your focus is to get them visible, to have the six-pack effect, you need to focus on reducing your body fat. So you're better off spending your time focusing on nutrition or burning extra calories. You got to remember, these are a small muscle group, so they don't really need as much attention as people tend to think. Okay, there's no point going to the gym and blasting your abs for an hour thinking that that's going to be the biggest calorie burner. It's not. Go and train legs or do something else. One thing as well to bear in mind, that when you're doing abdominal training, you're really only working your front side, your anterior chain. You need to focus on the posterior as well if you want to have a well-balanced, strong core. So even it out, balance it out. I'm going to have a video about strengthening your lower back. That's going to come out in a couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for that one. And that's that. So thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you soon.